Sometimes the love that welcomes someone back hurts more than the wound that drove them away. What happens when we cannot forgive? When we turn away the one seeking forgiveness? What happens for you? What happens for them? Mary. Mary was so sure of her stand, so sure the truth was being told, at least from her sources, so sure those other sources were hateful and telling lie after lie after lie. She often sat alone at home, sipping tea, watching news matters religiously, her certainty deepening with every broadcast. As Mary sat alone, waiting for a call from family who thought she was crazy and delusional, she began going through yesterday's mail. The tea cooled and turned bitter, but she sipped it anyway. Opening the electric bill first, she nearly dropped her cup and it clattered to rest on the plate. The bill had nearly doubled. She pulled out the last month and same month from last year to see what might have changed before calling to complain. Her consumption was nearly the same as last month and the same as last year. And yet, what on earth was going on? She would call later, too upset right now. Next, the cable bill. That had gone up too. Just yesterday, grocery shopping, she had bought the same food she always bought on a Friday morning. A pound each of chicken, fish, and ground beef, a head of iceberg lettuce, a tomato, and a cucumber. A half pound of sliced ham and American cheese, a dozen eggs, a pound of butter, 4 potatoes, and a small bag of carrots, a package of cookies, a quart of milk, and a small jar of instant coffee. Every week, pretty much the same. The groceries had rung up at $40 more than last time. Her gas tank, which she always filled at half empty for roughly $20, now $42, and would have cost $84 if she had been on empty. $84. How is this possible? How can I manage this? It's temporary, isn't it? That's what he says, just temporary. 6 months later, Mary was in trouble. She could no longer afford to live on her own. Her Social Security check hadn't increased. The Medicare withdrawal had gone up, along with co-pays and deductibles. She had had a hospital admission and a 1-week stay at a SNF after her CHF flared up. And that deductible had cost her dearly. Combined with the higher cost of literally everything, it had drained her meager savings. No one had checked in on her. She felt so alone. They can't see me anymore because they disagree with me. Mary realized she could not make it on her own more than 1 or 2 months more. She stared at the silent phone for a long while. As she continued to contemplate reaching out to family, those on the other side in that other camp, she noticed that even the news channels she watched were now saying negative things about the government she trusted. What is happening? Have I gotten it wrong? There was that war she didn't want, and those prices. They had been promised lower, not higher. If I weren't required to have insurance, and if it didn't automatically come out of my Social Security check, I wouldn't carry it. Too expensive. Her favorite cookies and her brand of American cheese weren't on the shelves anymore. The grocery store said it was a trucking problem. No drivers. Substitutes are fine. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe we actually need some of those immigrants. But weren't they taking our jobs? Weren't they draining the country? Weren't they? Mary watered her plants and listened to music, trying hard to ignore how hard things had gotten. She missed her friends and family and wished she could tell them how she felt about her rising doubts. Would any of them even answer if she called? Probably not. How did I get so alone in my determination to be right? That's what it is, isn't it? I got so determined to be right that I willingly gave up my relationships. Being right doesn't pay the bills. Being right doesn't feel loving or kind. Being right is so one-sided. If I am right, you are wrong. If being right is it really more important than the love of family? No, it's not. How do I let go of what I believed to be true? That thing that made me feel a part of something huge and important. I was so damn sure. But nothing has come true. The idea of what would happen never did. Why hold on to it? Why, indeed? The first call she made was to her brother Jake. Jake had always been easygoing and kind. "Hi, Jake, it's me, Mary. How are you?" Jake acknowledged her, but there was no real warmth in his voice. "Things are tough. Carol and I are struggling financially, like everyone, I guess. Worse, though, Jen's boyfriend, Alejandro. He got picked up by ICE, and we don't know where he is now. It's horrible. She loves him so much. They were planning to marry. He was here on a work visa as a physical therapist. Now, just gone." Mary expressed how sorry she was to hear it and asked if she could do anything for them. Jake was silent for a long time. "Mary, there's nothing you can do now, but you did contribute to this happening, and you know it." Mary was shocked by the anger in his voice. Was he really blaming me? Yes, he was. And I guess I did contribute, even if I didn't expect it to hit so close to home. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I realize what you're saying is true. I'm so sorry." Jake was fuming. She could practically feel it through the phone line. "Jake?" Another pause. "Thank you for saying that, Mary. I'm hurting. Jen is hurting. We all are. I don't know if I can forgive you. I'll try, but I don't know. That's the best I can do for now. I have to go." And he hung up. Mary sat with her tea, alone again, but with a heavy air squeezing on her heart. I put being right before loving my family, and now I might not be let back in. How could I have done this to myself? What can I do to repair the damage? If they cannot, will not forgive me, what then? I can't be alone forever. I'll die. I want back in. Politics be damned. Jake stood with the phone still in his hand. He hadn't moved. The kitchen was quiet around him. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock above the stove, the empty space where Alejandro had eaten dinner with them 3 nights in a row last week before he stopped coming. The phone made its little 3-tone disconnect sound and then went silent. Carol came in from the living room. She'd heard his side of the call, or some of it, and when she saw his face, she stopped in the doorway. "That was Mary," he said. She nodded, already knowing. She said she was sorry. Carol came over and put her hand on his arm. He looked at her and then at the phone in his hand, and then he set the phone down on the counter, carefully, like it was fragile. The space where Mary's voice had been still felt warm somehow. He didn't trust the warmth. "Sit down," Carol said. They sat at the kitchen table. The chair across from Jake was empty. It was always empty now. They had stopped putting a placemat there after the first week, but the absence of the placemat was somehow louder than the placemat had been. Jen had cried about that on Tuesday. Then she had stopped crying. That was almost worse. "What did you tell her?" Carol asked. "I told her I didn't know if I could forgive her." Carol nodded slowly. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the empty chair. "What did she say?" "She said she was sorry. She said it twice." "And you said?" "I said I'd try." Carol let out a long breath. Not a sigh exactly, more like she'd been holding her breath through the whole thing and had just remembered she could let it go. "That's a lot," she said. "What's a lot?" "Trying. Trying is a lot." Jake looked at her. He wasn't sure if she meant it was a lot to ask of himself or a lot to give Mary. Maybe both. Maybe Carol didn't know either. "Jen's going to come home in an hour," Carol said. "Are we going to tell her?" Jake didn't answer right away. He was thinking about Alejandro, about the morning Jen had called sobbing from the parking lot of the rehab clinic where he worked because he hadn't shown up and his car was still in the lot, about the days they had spent calling numbers no one answered, about not knowing if he was in Texas or Louisiana or back in Mexico, about the letters Jen tried to write to no address, about not knowing if he was eating, about not knowing if he was hurt. "I don't know," Jake said. "She'll find out." "I know. She'll find out and she'll wonder, why didn't we tell her?" "I know, Carol." Carol was quiet for a long time. The clock above the stove ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and then stopped. "What do you want to do?" Carol said finally. Jake leaned back in his chair. He looked at the empty chair across from him. "I want my sister back," he said. "That's what I want. I want my sister to be the way she was before all this. I want her to call on a Sunday afternoon and complain about my back and have her tell me to stop being a baby. I want to bring her chowder when she's sick. I want to forget the last 4 years." "You can't forget." "I know. You can't forget and have her back. Those are the same thing." He looked at his wife. She was right. She was usually right. "Then I want to remember and have her back anyway." He said, "But I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can forgive it. I don't know if Jen can. And Alejandro isn't here to even ask. Alejandro isn't here, Carol said, because of how she voted. That's the thing. I know. And she didn't pull him out of his car. She didn't put him in handcuffs. And she didn't drive him away. No. But she made it possible. Her and people like her. She helped build the world where this could happen. And then it happened to us. Jake nodded. So when she calls and says she's sorry, what do we do? He didn't answer. Carol looked down at her hands on the table. She turned her wedding ring around her finger once, twice. She had been doing that more lately. Jake didn't know if she knew she was even doing it. My grandmother had a saying, Carol said. She said, forgiveness isn't a feeling. It's a decision you make over and over until it becomes a feeling. Jake had heard her say this before. She said it as she always said it, like she didn't entirely believe it, but wanted to. And what if it never becomes a feeling, Jake asked. Then you decide every day for the rest of your life, and that's the work. He looked at the empty chair. He thought about Mary alone in her kitchen, the silent phone she had been staring at, the cooled tea. He thought about being 72 years old and realizing your family didn't want to hear from you anymore. He thought about their mother in her last year, who had been afraid to die alone, and how Mary had been the one who sat with her at the end, while Jake was on a plane from Denver. How Mary had held their mother's hand for 37 hours straight. How she had called him at 3 a.m. to say, she's gone. She's gone, Jake. I held her. She went peacefully. That had been 4 years ago, before Mary started watching that channel. Before Mary started saying things at Thanksgiving. Before everything. I'll call her tomorrow, Jake said. Carol looked up. Are you sure? No. What are you going to say? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe just, hi, Mary, it's me, I'm calling. Maybe that's all I have for now. Carol reached across the table and took his hand. Then that's enough for now, she said. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, a door opened. Jen, home early. They stayed at the table. They didn't move yet. They were going to have to tell her. They were going to have to figure out how. They were going to have to decide, all three of them. And maybe Alejandro too, if he ever came home. What they could and couldn't do with what Mary had given them. The phone sat silent on the counter. The chair across from Jake was empty. The hurting love was already in the room. Love is the only way forward. I'm Linda at TULA Light, where story meets spirit.